There are two forms that she had to sign. She had to sign one on day one, in which she took an oath to preserve in the government's possession government records. If she signed it, and 2 weeks later diverted the government records to her husband's server in Chappaqua, New York, she probably committed perjury.
All right, and then part two, if she signed the letter on the way out that stated she has handed over all documents and didn't do it for 2 years after that, that too would be perjury. Joining us now is Pete Hoekstra, former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, former congressman from the great state of Michigan. Congressman, welcome. What do you make of Judge Andrew Napolitano's analysis here?
I think I'm not going to argue with the judge. I'm sure that analysis is accurate. She could be in, very much in legal trouble because of the forms and the documents. But I think ultimately that's not going to be her biggest problem.
Well, legal trouble would be pretty big if it's a felony. She couldn't run for office, certainly. What would her biggest problem be?
Well, I think I'm not sure that the legal problems will ever get to be a felony. I'm not sure that the signing of those forms, I don't think it will go in that direction. I think just her explanation, I did a personal email account. It was more convenient and those types of things. Any of us that work in the private sector, that middle group of voters, those independent voters, younger people who have grown up with technology, just know that that explanation doesn't fly. If they're working in the private sector, they're working at a law firm, they're working in a business, they're working in a development area, they know all the hassle that they go through, that their companies make them go through to protect the integrity of their computer networks. And, it's just going to tell everyone, you know what, she just doesn't get it and didn't get it. And you're in one of the most powerful positions in the United States, and you're doing things on your computer out of convenience when you're dealing with a lot of sensitive information. Her story just doesn't fly.
Well, let me ask you, because I have asked, right after the press conference, we had Lanny Davis on. He had no explanation. The president of Judicial Watch said there's no such law. Senator Hoeven yesterday said he knows of no reason why not. Would it not have been possible for Hillary Clinton to carry one phone, yet have two email addresses on that one phone, like as I've done yesterday, I'll hold up my BlackBerry, like the 3 email addresses I have on my BlackBerry?
Sure. I mean, I carry a phone around, and I've got multiple email addresses on it. When I was in Congress, I carried multiple devices. Most members of Congress, and she probably should, who knows, she should have done this when she was a senator. She would have carried a government phone for official business. She would have carried a campaign phone for campaign business, and she would have carried a personal phone for personal business. And campaign laws are very, very strict. You can't mix those and have a campaign phone pay for a campaign account, pay for a personal phone pay for a campaign phone, and none of them can pay for a government phone. So, she knows the rules, and the technology would enable you to do the kinds of things.
Yep.
That's why her story won't fly with tech-savvy people.
Right. Or anybody who has a phone with a couple of email addresses on it. It's just the whole, that she would come out and that would be the first words out of her mouth, that she didn't want to carry 2 phones, is obscene. All right, let me ask you actually the first words out of her mouth were to criticize the 47 senators who sent the letter to Iran, and basically called them, in my view, she called them traitors by her 2 explanations, her possible explanations for why they did it. Put this letter in the context of Nancy Pelosi going to Syria, Ted Kennedy writing to the Soviet Union, trying to make sure Reagan didn't get reelected, Jim Wright, the majority leader of the House, Dear Commandante to Noriega, on the Nicaraguan situation. Why is this one? I heard Bob Schieffer on WCBS radio this morning plugging his Face the Nation for this weekend, and he's going to have the Senator Tom Cotton, and he said, this is unprecedented. No one around Washington could think of anything like it. And I felt like jumping through the radio. So how does this compare to those that I mentioned?
It doesn't, and I think you've left off one big example. I think it was David Bonnier and Jim McDermott, two significant members of at that time, I think the Democratic majority in the House, who went and visited Saddam Hussein in Iraq. And so, it is not unprecedented. When the foreign affairs process breaks down and the Congress is not working in coordination with the executive branch, members of Congress have used these same types of tools in the past. It's an open letter, and all it does is it explains how the system works and says that, hey, sometime in the future, this thing is not legally binding. They just pointed that out, and guess what? So did Secretary Kerry.
Right, the next day.
And so did the folks at the State Department, saying whatever agreement we have is going to be an executive action which is not legally binding on future administrations.
Right, and they're going to go
That's
through
not giving aid and comfort to the enemy.
And apparently they're talking about going through the United Nations Security Council to ratify this as opposed to the Senate.
If the president decides to go to the UN security and bypass the U.S. Congress and is now going to submit U.S. foreign policy to the UN, this Democratic Party and this president, they're going to go into hibernation for a long period of time.
Yep, I hear you.
That just does not fly. It's a very, very creative solution, but we cannot give our sovereignty over
to the United Nations,
to the UN.
Couldn't agree more.
That really is crossing a red line.
Congressman, great to talk to you. Thank you very much, folks. Up next, Democratic strategist, former advisor to Bill Clinton, David Goodfriend. But first, your Max to Life moment on devaluing your home. That's next.